Okay. Okay, so for speaking part 3, oh wait. Okay, so for speaking part 3, usually we have like some types of questions. So sometimes you maybe can see in some books or some examples, they may ask you about what do you think would happen if cities stop investing in public transport. For example, here I want to like what happen if. Okay, wait. I think I can go to the next slides, but I just want to like give a brief types of question here. So like, for example, you can find like, what do you think would happen if cities stop investing in public transport? How do you think transport will change in the next 10 years? Um, so you think we should spend more money on building roads or railways? So here about comparison. And then 4 is about some people says that car drivers should pay higher taxes if they have bigger car. What do you think? So mostly some question might needs your perspective as an individual, but some needs your perspective as a general, not as a general, but as a representative of general people. So like from sorry of a community. So you have to give a question. Sorry, I mean you have to give the answer based on the question. So is it refers to you as an individual, or is it require, I mean like it requires you to explain about something based on like general people thoughts. Okay, so here is the types of question, compare and contrast. Um, for compare and contrast, you have to like definitely comparing and contrasting about something. So you have to like study 2 or more options and talk about their differences and similarities. Sometimes we just focus on like talking about other side, then also highlight other side. But here you have to remember that for comparing and contrasting question, you have to talk about their differences and similarities. So even though the question is only ask you about the differences, you have to like at least provide one similarities that they have for your opening or for your closing or like for like highlight the things that you compare. Again, remember, even though the question is about asking you the differences, you have to like make sure that at least you provide also one similarities. That's also happen when the question asking you about the similarities, you have to like provide at least one difference that they have in common. Okay, and then the next question types is hypothesis. Hypothesis is like a question that needs you to talk about an imagined situation in the present of or the future. So we can go back to the previous slide. Remember that hypothesis talk about an imagined situation in the present or future. That's different with speculate. Other types that we have here, speculate is about talking about something that might happen in the present or future. Okay. So the differences between hypothesis and speculation, like from Indonesian language, like spekulasi. So when you try to speculate about something, it means you do a speculation about things that already happened and now is still happening, but you like try to imagine what will happen in the near future if this thing still occur. But hypothesis is totally like you make something hypothetical in your mind. Like for example, if it's not happened, then it's happened. It's totally about your imagination. So it may be about something that's like unnecessarily for you to think about, or it's about something that, um, let's say, extraordinary.
Mhm.
So it's um yeah, the simplest ways to differentiate between hypothesis and speculate is like speculate based on what happening, but hypothesis is
Mhm.
totally about your imagination. So you can like imagine about things that maybe unnormal. And about evaluation types of question. So here you have to like decide how much you agree or disagree by the argument that they provide in the question. So we can go back to the types of question. Mm, the first question here is, what do you think would happen if city stops investing in public transport? So what do you think? Is it about a speculation, hypothesis, evaluate, or compare and contrast?
I think it's about speculate.
Okay, so we keep it as speculate for a while before we later on make sure is it the answer or not. And then what about the second question? How do you think transport will change in the next 10 years?
It's imagination.
That's
It's
imagination.
hypothesis. Yeah.
Okay, so that's hypothesis. And what about the third question here?
Something interesting. Um, what else? If some people say revolution. Apa ya tadi ya satunya kak? Ininya. Lupa tadi.
We still compare and contrast and evaluation. Evaluate.
Evaluate.
Okay. And so like the last one you started for compare and contrast.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's see.
Okay.
Okay, so compare and contrast. Compare and contrast. Usually, you will have like the way to respond is maybe, perhaps, or more important, less important, or you can say like argument. This argument is blah blah blah. On the other hand, this argument is blah blah blah. So we can go back comparing. Um, I know that the first and the second is not about comparing, but maybe the third and the fourth, one of the question is
What?
comparing and contrasting. So here we have
Okay.
like questions. So do you think we should spend more money on building roads or railways? Or some people say that car drivers should pay higher taxes if they have bigger car. What do you think? So which one that requires you to provide the answer by saying this argument is blah blah blah, or this is more important than this, the third or the fourth?
Mm, I think it's third.
Good. Yeah, because here like one sorry, one way to like spot, or like one way to um get that this is the compare and contrast question is it from or. So do you think that we should spend more money on building roads or railways? Maybe you can answer that I think we should spend more money in building roads because blah blah blah. I also think that railways blah blah blah. So here you have to, again, if it's about compare and contrast, you have to still talk about both sides. Maybe you can say like, sorry, I'll go back to like my answer about this. So do you think that we should spend more money on building roads or railways? You can answer by saying that I think um we can spend more money on building roads because of this. And the reason why railways come for the second priority because of this. So again, you have to keep talking, not keep talking, but like maintain to talk about both sides, even though you like prefer the building roads, but you have to like also talk about railways. Okay, that's for compare and contrast. And sorry. About the evaluation, I go to the evaluation first before hypothesis and speculate. So for the evaluation, how do you responding is like completely agree, I totally agree, I don't really agree, or I disagree, or like I'm kind of confusing with my decision, but if I can say this, then this. You can go with that kind of answer. Okay, so evaluate here. The question, some people say that car drivers would pay higher taxes if they have bigger cars. So what do you think? So how you indicate that this question is about evaluation is that they asking you about your agreement. Setuju apa enggak setuju? Without, maybe they can go with, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? But sometimes they just like go with the simplest way. What do you think? What do you think based on this statement? You will always have a statement before you have the question. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? So that's the evaluation question. Okay. For evaluation question, again, even though you like the main answer that the examiner want to hear from you is like, I totally agree, I totally disagree, or like I'm in between, or whatever the question, the stance that you have, but you have also to provide the reason. So how you answer the evaluation question is that mention your stance, and then after that give your reason. If you can provide an example, then good for you. You can provide example. So for example, like you say that even though they have like bigger cars, but they don't like travel a lot, so they don't have to pay higher taxes. Like compared to, let's say, motorcycle, even though they have like small body or like small shape, and maybe they are not going to like consume too much space in the road, but they do a traveling a lot for accommodating like people, or for people accommodating, sorry, for people accommodation. So maybe they have to like pay higher. You can say that. Again, the structure of the way you answer the question of evaluation is go with this, your stance, and after it, give your reason. And if you can provide example, go with example. And about the first and second question, speculation and hypothesis. Okay, so before we go to like how to respond, I want to like reconsider. I want you to reconsider these two questions. So remember that hypothesis is something about that, something that totally about your imagination. So you have now like you have no phenomena or even that maybe lead to that condition. That's hypothesis. But
Okay.
speculation is like you already have it now, and maybe it will impact the future. You got it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I got it.
Okay. So I
I
think you
just
want to
got
like
it.
change it. Okay.
I want to change it. So the number one is hypothesis, and the second is speculate.
Speculation. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Speculate. Speculate. Okay. I speculate. Oh my God. Okay, so that's how you remember about what
Yeah.
speculation and hypothesis. And hypothesis is usually using what if. What if is something that if you still remember about if conditional, you maybe have like
Okay.
that lesson in your English class. So if you use would if, it means something that still an imagination. It doesn't happen yet, but it
Yeah.
probably will someday.
Yeah.
So that's your hypothesis. And then how do you think transport will change in the next 10 years? I mean, like now they are
Okay.
changing. So in the next future, they might keep changing or like stop changing. So for answer the question about hypothesis, you could use I'd imagine, I think, I'd expect, or you can say, for example, like based on the question here, what do you think would happen if cities stop investing in public transport? You can say like, I'd expect the public transport would blah blah blah. So you use I'd imagine, I think, I'd expect, but you have to like add would.
Mm.
So that's how you answer the question about hypothesis question. And about speculation, it's difficult to say. I'm not sure, but maybe because it's about speculation, you are not sure what will happen in the next future. But based on what happening now, it will be like this. So remember, if there is a speculation question, you have to answer by provide what happening now, and then
Mm.
you give some speculation statement about something that will happen in the next 10 years. So usually start with what's happening, and then what will happen. So based on what I've said, you can indicate that you have to use simple present continuous tense
Continuous then.
and then future tense.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's important about like that's what important about types of question. But I also want to like remind you other we also have like other types of question. For example, do people need to write down goals or simply memorize them? Like this is comparison and contrast, but that's totally different question with this type, because here they highlight what do you think, or they mention about you, means like you can give your personal opinion. But if the question is like, do people need to write down goals or simply memorize them? You have to remember that here you are the representative of like other people. So
Okay.
I suggest you not to use I here when you answer this kind of question, because
Mm.
again the center of the attention is not you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so avoid using I, myself, me in answering the question, and that don't use your name, you sorry, don't use you in the question. Okay, jadi kalau nggak ada do you think, you, what do you think, what's your opinion, how do you consider about, if there is no you, like that, those kind of example that I just mentioned. So please try to avoid that using I, myself, and me. Kalau questionnya kayak seperti ini, if the question is like what appear in your screen, so you have to act as a representative of other people. So be careful. And again, another consideration for how to answer the question for speaking part three is that if the question is starting with um, question word, and then you have to be careful in how to answer. For example, like what are the good things about working for a big company? Never answer it by like saying, um, let's say do or can, or like some models or some helping words, but directly answer the question by highlight what what items, or like what do you call it, like what the keywords that they need you to highlight in your answer. So for example, what are the good things about working for a big company? There are several good things, or there are several beneficial from working with a big company, for example, like that. So that's also happened when the question is about why. Why requires you to answer the question. I mean, like requires the the person who is being asked to provide the answer by saying the reason, by provide the reason. So why do some people refuse to eat animals? You can directly answer by the reason or blah blah blah. So you are not highlight do, but the question board. How do people deliver important information? You don't highlight again, you don't highlight do, but you highlight the how. So there are several things, but there are several ways people to deliver the important information. But my mistake in explaining is this is I make a repetition of the question. That's one example that's not a good answer. Why? Because here in speaking part three, you have to. I don't think that it's only speaking part three. Speaking part one, two, and three, you have to paraphrase the question. So, for example, like, do people need to write down goal or simply memorize them? Please don't mention that I'm sure that people have to write down the goals instead of simply memorize them. That means you make a repetition. Okay, so you have to like paraphrase.
Mhm.
So you have to try to find another way to explain the question. So, do people need to write down goals or simply memorize them? You can say, I do think memorizing memorizing goals is like more important compared to just jot it down. So that's how you like paraphrasing. Jot means write as well. Okay. What another thing that we have to? Oh, I think you can learn about this by yourself. Um, oh yeah, three ways to paraphrasing. You can use the synonym of the word. So by looking at the question, you can, or by hearing the question, you can spot which word that I can paraphrase, or you can use like verb transformation. Like for example, before I say instead of repeat memorize, I using I had sorry I had I had to use memorizing. So that's how I use verb transformation to paraphrase. And you can also use this one sentence restructuring. So for example, instead of using active voice, you can transfer it into passive voice. So that's how you can paraphrase your speaking part three question. And I also have like some links here, actually only two links for the idioms. Idioms is really important for you. If you can use idioms in your speaking, you can aim 7 for for tax achievement, right? No, no, no. For the vocabulary, I think coherence and cohesive. Yeah, for your coherence and cohesive, if you use idioms, you can get 7. So I provide the link here. I will send the presentation
Okay.
to you after the class so you can like try to look at this idiom. Okay, so any question?
Not yet. I
Okay,
think I need more practice. Maybe later you can give me some homeworks.
okay. So actually we still have like 12 minutes. So I want to like
Okay.
practice with you with some question that I already provide here. And wait, okay. I already have like some question that related to COVID-19.
Okay.
Okay, where are you? Okay. My first question. Please think carefully about the answer and the question. What requirements that do you think me as the examiner want you to provide in your answer? Okay, so my question is, what difficulties did some people face with social distancing and lockdown at the time of the coronavirus outbreak? Again, what
Okay.
difficulties did some people face with social distancing and lockdown at the time of the coronavirus outbreak?
Difficulties. I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
Okay, so if you are not sure about the question, and
Question.
then the examiner is already, I'm like, the examiner was um provide like 2 or 3 times repeating the question, usually try to like just analyze what did you catch. For example, I'm not sure about the question, but I catch the social distancing word and lockdown, and then difficulties. So those are keywords that maybe I can like get from the question: difficulty, social distancing, and lockdown. So I can just like pretending that I understand the question. I can go with like, actually, I'm not really sure with the question. But since you mentioned about the difficulties of social distancing and lockdown, I think there are blah, blah, blah. So you just like pretending you understand the question by
Oh,
highlighting the keywords that you
catch.
hear or you catch. And if the examiner give you the question in another way, I'm like paraphrasing the question, that's good for you, but that's like, I could say like that's rarely happened in
Yeah.
real IELTS test. So if they already like re-mention or like, yeah, give you 2 times um, opportunities repeating the question, so you have to like pretending you understand the question just by using the keywords. Okay, I will repeat once again, and then please try to like go with the answer whatever in your mind. Okay,
Okay.
so the question is, what difficulties did some people face with social distancing and lockdown at the time of the coronavirus outbreak?
Okay. Actually, I didn't get. Uh, I didn't get the point of your question, but I think it's about the difficulties caused by coronavirus, and social distancing make people more often use sorry people use phone or electronics often than usual than before coronavirus. Did you get what I'm saying? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm spelling.
Okay,
Oh,
no problem. I will show you the question. Okay, so the question is, what difficulties did some people face with social distancing and lockdown at the time of the coronavirus outbreak? Even though you are trying, I'm like, you were trying to provide a good answer by emphasizing about how people use the electronical devices more in coronavirus, I mean like during coronavirus outbreaks, but you still not reach the point of the difficulty, right?
okay.
So if the idea is about using electronical devices, you maybe want to like highlight that some people they don't guess, I'm like, they don't really know how to operate electronic devices. But like during the coronavirus outbreak, they are pushed to or forced to be able to operate those kind of things. So some people struggle with that. You can mention that. Or you can also mention that since the lesson or like yeah, teaching learning process is happening by using Zoom, some student might struggle with that, and some teacher also.
Hmm.
You can yes that you can say about that, and then you can also say that it is hard to do a social distancing in some public spaces, for example, marketplace, sorry, not
Hmm.
marketplace, like supermarket or
It's,
traditional market. And then it is hard for people to like go and visit their family during lockdown. You can mention about that, or you can also say about people are afraid to go um, to some places, even though it's important for them to go there. For example, go to visit the hospital because they don't want to like being tested positive with coronavirus. So some people being skeptical about that lockdown, you can say like those kind of things. Maybe this is the question. And then how about like you to convince the examiner that even though you are not sure about the question, but you want to like do your best in your answer, please try to use but if it's about, so for example, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not really sure about the question, but if it is about the difficulties during social distancing and lockdown, then what comes to my mind or what's in the top of my mind, oh, you can use that in the top of my mind. That's one of in idiom. Remember, if you can use idiom, you can aim 7 for coherence and cohesive. So that will be good.
okay.
Okay. Oh, another things. Um, if the question is about what difficulties or like in a plural form, difficulties instead of difficulty, so the examiner expect you provide more than one difficulty.
Okay.
Okay. That's also happened like in the whole question in every part of speaking IELTS. So if the question is in a plural form, so the examiner expect you to provide like more than one answer, more than one example, more than one reason. And then pay also attention about the tenses that we use here. What difficulties did mean like it's already happened in the past. So you maybe want to talk about something that already happened in the past. But but if you aren't like pretty sure that this is still happening, you can say that, I think when we talk about social distancing and lockdown, it is a process that's still occurring right now. So I could say that the difficulties that we have is also still like being a struggle for people. And then you go with mentioning what difficulties. So it means you can use other tenses based on the context that you provide in your answer. But if you want to like go with the question, like strict with it or something that happened in the past, so you have to pay attention with your tenses that you use in your answer. Okay. Okay, another question before we finish our meeting today. Adakah pertanyaan?
Hmm, sebenarnya belum kayak kayak apa ya? Kalau saya tuh Kak, pertanyaan
Mhm.
muncul kalau bingung. bukan bingung, kalau pertanyaan muncul kalau kayak ada yang susah gitu.
I see. Okay, okay,
Jadi
okay,
belum,
okay. So,
maksudnya ini bukan nggak susah, cuma masih proses di
yeah,
kepala kayak gitu.
okay. Oke, nanti saya kirim ini ya, link ini untuk mungkin dilihat-lihat pertanyaannya, terus contoh
Boleh.
jawabannya. And then you can
Mm-mm.
practice with this kind of question. If you have any question, please let me know. You can reach me anytime. And remember
Oke.
that if you want to retake, not retake, but like having your progress test, you can reach Kageri if Kageri is not available in your availability time. So for example, like there is no match time between you and Kagiri, so you can come to me and then I will give you like the progress test. But make sure first with Kagiri. Okay.
Oke.
Okay.
Oke. Noted.
Okay.
I just realized
Mhm,
last week, I think,
mhm.
Gary is my senior high school friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Gary,
And
like, Gary told us
oh
a
yeah.
lot like every day. Oh, please, please. Rani is one of my friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's your senior in senior high school or in?
No, in the same level. So
Oh, got
actually,
it.
it's a quite just both of us. Gary is my friend's ex-boyfriend.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense. Why, like, he ever asked to like, please don't put Rani in my group.
Oh, okay.
Maybe to avoid like maybe to avoid